Are you yearning to wake up each morning and ignite a new meaning and purpose in life and beyond? Welcome, everyone. I'm Michael McGinnis, an award-winning author, speaker, and educator on human potential, and your host on You Can Do It, Inspiring Growth, Igniting Potential. Life presents us with challenges that serve as catalysts for growth. The pivotal question is, how do we respond to these challenges? Or better yet, opportunities. Do we adopt a victim mindset or rise to become victors? Our goal here is to guide and inspire you to master the most amazing journey you have, your life. You Can Do It starts now. Hey everybody, Michael McGinnis. Welcome back. Hey, look at the palm trees out here. Bon voyage. Well, that's right. I'm getting ready for my modern day vision quest, right? And that travel that I'll be sharing several episodes of amazing stories about personal growth and self-discovery and enlightenment that resulted from this period of time that I took to really figure who I am. And that's what's so awesome about that. If you were to look here at the framework of growth, right? I've used this all the way, the tree of growth, tree of life, and you see that we've been focusing a lot on the personal growth, right? That's the basic part that you have to do to be able to get your house in order, right? You can't really go beyond that. We can't even help others fix themselves until we get our own house in order. And that's the part where we really look in, we identify really what these unhealthy beliefs are, the things that are holding us back, creating that pain and suffering, things like low self-esteem, senses of unworthiness, and we all have those vestiges, right? And that's what that personal growth was about. Talked about that journey, a lot of counseling, therapy, intensive therapy, support groups, all those elements that really helped to make this big change in my life. And so now, I'm back on my 2 feet. I'm really starting to get on my own. But what's different now? Well, for some people, that's sufficient. That's enough. But for me, and I found similar to others, there's this nagging feeling for more. And that's what was happening. And along that way, it was just this staying awake at night, what else? And what's more? And there were things that I couldn't even put a question to them or a sentence to them at all. And what I'll share with you is shortly the thing that clarified everything for me and really led me into the stage of self-discovery, which is really formally about that point of where we'll start asking ourselves deeper questions. Who are we? What do we stand for? And what do we want to do with our life? And these are things that are not easy questions to be able to address. And I'll be sharing the stories and elements that really tie into this phase of life. And for me, it was the profound opportunity I used for travel, right? So when we're looking here at the tools for self-discovery and personal growth, we covered a lot of these other elements over here. One of them you see here is travel. Well, that relates a lot to what I did. And that wasn't a plan. It wasn't even a thought. It was just stuff that happened in my life. And that's the best way to really experience growth is to be able to allow things to start opening up and developing. Remember that statement, that quote, when the student is ready, the teachers will come. And that's exactly what will happen. It's important to understand that concept is when you're ready, things will start happening. The universe is there. It's ready. It's just waiting for you to make those steps towards what you want to do, clarification of what you want, and then boom, you'll very often find the things start, or the yellow brick road starts to open up. So, and in this particular case, I want to take a step back first because it was a great question again, and thanks for the question. And I did reference the concept of peeling an onion. And the question was, what does that mean? And so you're going to see an image here of an onion, right? And this is the concept that I developed throughout the years of research as I really began to immerse myself, in not only my own growth, but it was the nature of my work with respect to developing the human potential, in my roles, in my jobs, in my career. And there was many elements that I started to find that were in common. Well, peeling the onion is very characteristic of what we're doing in the self-discovery phase, right? On the surface, this is really this person that we walk around as. Well, frankly, we all wear many facades. What does that mean? Well, when we go to work, are we the same person that we are at home? No, typically not. We typically have to wear a different facade, a different mask, be careful of our guard, what we say and who we say it to, in contrast to others. And it's the same thing, when we're maybe doing dating or relationships, we can very often wear facades, masks that we wear that really represent our different personalities. In effect, we all have multiple personality disorder, right? Not in an extreme sense of a mental illness condition, but we all do have sort of these multiple personalities in terms of how we are in certain circumstances and situations. And the key here is ultimately to be able to discover, but really, who am I? There comes that point of which you want to just throw away those masks and to be able to really be who you are, right? That's the epitome. When you do, you feel authentic, you feel transparent, you're being who you are, you no longer feel like a fake or a facade or superficial, you're you. And that's really the goal really of the phase of self-discovery is to discover who that person is. Well, the concept of the onion, as that's again shown here, is just we begin by looking at our outer self. An outer self can really be assessed by beginning to start looking at who we are, like personality assessments, looking at aspects of what we are. And then there's just the feedback that we get from others. What do we think? What do you like? What do you know about me? What do you see? What do you like? What do you don't like? And we sort of collect that information through the outside, the external facade that we wear most of the time. But then, like I said, there are facades. And it's important to understand how we change ourselves when we're in different environments or situations. Because those are the kinds of things that when we're not being authentic self, we tend to feel fake, right? And we can come across fake. And it's the kind of thing that we do very often because we have to, just like in a work environment. But over time, as I mentioned, we want to really become our true selves. Well, then we begin to start peeling the onion even further. And there's this whole concept nurture nature. A lot of what we've been has been influenced by the past, right? But the nature part is just, who we are, our personality. Personality is pretty much standard throughout our life. We can condition it, we can become aware of it. Again, personality assessments are a great way to see that. And as you take many of these personality assessments, it's like building a collage of yourself. So if you could just imagine all these assessments as pictures, and once you put together all of these assessments, you start begin to see, oh yeah, this is really who I am. This is more of what my tendency, my nature, my preferences really are. And that's good. But then there's the nurture side of that, and that's the influence by our past, right? Which is really whether or not we experienced love or hatred, or in my case, the trauma I experienced. And there were all of those elements that had a significant influence in terms of who we are today. So we start to examine those aspects of our life. Then we start to go deeper. This stuff, it gets harder and harder because we've got to be able to go inside. The answers lay always inside. The challenge for many of us is, what does that mean? How do we get there? And tools like meditation, uh, journaling, other things allow us to start penetrating our facades and shells that we do wear, start going inside to start thinking about really who we are. And it takes a lot of reflection, very often timeouts in life. This is again where travel can come in, as well as just, a day where we go someplace and into nature, particularly be on our own with a journal, and we begin to start really reflecting. These things typically allow us, because there's less stress around us, nobody to wear our facades on, our facades with, and we begin to start identifying and writing down notes with respect to it. And then ultimately in self-discovery, we begin to peel down to sort of the central of our unconscious level, which is our belief system. What is it that we believe? What has been our beliefs? What are the beliefs that we want to keep? And what are the beliefs that we want to change? We all have unhealthy beliefs, like I'm not a good person or I'm not worthy, right? Those are the kinds of things that we tend to now identify at the root of us that are the cause of so much of the issues and negative consequences we experience. So that's in effect a brief note of peeling the onion and what we're about to do in the self-discovery phase. So let's talk a little bit about what got me there, right? So I told you that following all of this growth, I began to feel better. I had better self-esteem, with respect to myself. I was doing better at work. But there was still this quandary, this nagging element that I was trying to figure what was. It were sleepless nights, and I didn't even know. I couldn't even quantify. I remember even going into counseling, and I there was nothing I could really say except sleepless nights, and they were thinking maybe stress or something physical. But it was through journaling that I started to realize that there is something deeper. Well, fortunately, I was starting to don my masks, right? Get rid of those masks and facades that I was wearing at work. And there were people who came to know me and they were starting to witness this growth. Unfortunately, I was in a very supportive environment where I could act and feel in that way. And there was a point in time of which one day I came over to my desk. And on that desk, and you'll see here, is the quote from Jennifer James, The Call. And that was on my desk. I had no idea where it came from, what it was, but I read it. And I immediately felt the tears down my cheeks. It was an overwhelming sensation. And at that point, it all made sense. That's what it was all about. I'm not crazy after all. That's exactly how I'm feeling, were all of these statements and the effect of what Jennifer shares in her statement. Well, as it turns out, I was one of my colleagues, and she was a wonderful person, a caring person, very self-aware person. And she was aware of my growth. And she says, "No, Mike, I was thinking of you. I found that statement here, and I just felt, you know what? I felt it was you." And again, this is how the teachers come, right? Here is again was a woman who was just a colleague, and the teacher was there, and she didn't know that that would have that kind of an impact, but she knew just by her own feeling with, hey, I got to give this to Mike. And she did. And what a powerful impact, right? And now I'm just going to turn and look at that statement over here to read through that because there were some so key elements in that is throughout your life, there's a voice only you can hear, right? And that was this nagging feeling kind of inside. Well, I wasn't in touch with it yet, but through journaling, I was starting to get some ideas down, but something was challenging me, right? And when I would go to other people, that's where you sometimes realize that they often don't have the answer. They have their interpretation and their perception. And we want to be careful about buying their perception hook, line, and sinker. It may make sense. It's something to consider, but we really have to go to that depth. Again, that's what so much of growth, particularly this phase of growth, is about going within and going within because that's where our true answers lie. And so it was here is a voice which mythologists call the call, or label the call, a call to the value of your life, the choice of risk and individual bliss over the known and secure, right? I was comfortable then, had the job, had the steadiness, but you may choose not to hear your spirit. Ah, that's what all of a sudden caught my attention. Spirit. What spirit? Right? Here we go, right? It's all the ingredients for launching this phase of it is again not the direct connections yet, but it made sense. What spirit? Is that what's meant by inside me? Right? So it was beginning to generate more questions, but these questions now are getting profound. And as I started again to journal them, all of a sudden, there was some real deep profoundness to what I was journaling about. You may prefer to build a life within a compound to avoid risk. It's possible to find happiness in a familiar box, a life of comfort and control. And you can. Again, there's no right or wrong. There's people, who they don't like the risk. They want to avoid the risk and they prefer comfort. I get it, understand that. And it's not my part to tell them, what to do. They've got to be able to feel that sensation like I did. That agitation in me was that thing that was wanting to push me along. And I just didn't know what it meant yet. At first, I thought it was, am I crazy or something going on? Well, there's a lot of people that would say still yes to that answer. Am I crazy? But crazy in another way, right? Is that I'm beginning to break down the old methods and the mindsets and belief systems that I carried for so much of my life. Or you may choose to be open to new experiences, to leave the limits of your conditioning, to hear the call. Then you must act. If you never hear it, perhaps nothing is lost. If you hear it and ignore it, your life is lost. That's what caught me because it really resonated with me. It wasn't just because Jennifer said this. I didn't know who she was. But the statement really resonated with me. I didn't even know the word resonated at that time, what that really meant. Now I can. I can really relate to that. It's the ability that something really connects with you at a deeper internal level, that then you get a little bit more attention than just something else in passing that may not fully resonate with you. But it did. And it's what is this? What is this meaning? What is this all about? Well, isn't it interesting? Because at the same time that this was going on, and with my growth, I was assigned a great mentor in the company. And his name is Al Pierce. He's since passed. But he's an amazing vice president that was going to help me really to be able to grow because they all saw the potential in me. And as I was continuing to grow, they just wanted to take me under their wings and help me going forward. Isn't that awesome? Boy, to have people like that in your company, that's what you really would opt and hope for. Well, again, Al was another one of these teachers that had now surfaced in my life. And we're doing some of the traditional talks about developing what I really want to work on, from competencies or skills perspective to really be able to develop myself better as a leader. But then something happened. Al came in one day and he was a different person. And he said, Mike, I've been diagnosed with brain cancer and hesitated, and I have 6 months to live, they told me. Wow, profound. Oh, God, I couldn't even imagine how profound that was for him because it was super profound for me. But amazingly enough, is that he said, I'm not going to accept this prognosis. He read Dr. Bernie Siegel's Love, Medicine, and Miracles about the exceptional patients, and he said, I'm doing this. I'm taking charge. And he did. And guess what? He beat the cancer. I think he died from cancer about 20 years later. I just actually looked that up recently to look up at his name to see what had happened. And he'd survived another 20 years. He did well and ultimately succumbed to the cancer years later. But in that time, his whole approach to me had changed significantly, right? In other words, it wasn't just more superficial, it was deeper. And he started to ask these deeper questions like, what do you want to do with your life? Right. And here was this whole feeling. Here was this thing called the call that came into my life. And now here's this person sort of asking similar questions. Well, I didn't get the pieces of it yet until later, but it started to gel. And it gave me some work and assignments to go through. And sure enough, I started to come back. And one day I said, I want to travel. I want to get out. I want to see the world. I want to understand what's out there, and to do that. And then he really suggested that I consider that. In fact, there was a great book. I remember it was The Three Boxes of Life and it talked about how we have an order and sequence to how we live it, growing up, and then it's when the whole era of time of when we, work, get married, which is the brunt of our life, and then there's the last phases of our life, retirement, etc. And one of the things that it said is that don't wait for the third phase of retirement to do what you really want to do in life, because it may be too late and you may not get there. And so it suggested bringing some of those pieces, into earlier phases, into the second box of life. And that, along with other commentary, started to be a part of my thoughts and my journaling. And it was during this time that I really just told him I want to travel. And so he goes, okay, what do you want to do about it? Well, at the same time, the company I was working for, and Al was a great person to influence me because he knew what was happening more so with the company than certainly me at my level. And he said, Mike, the company's going to be changing. And there's going to be some significant changes. We're probably for the first time going to be experiencing some layoffs. And he goes, this might be a good time to go and exercise that option. And I thought about it. It was so scary to leave a company. It was just me on my own at that point in my life. But it was still scary. Scary to what? Travel. What am I going to do? How am I going to do that? Well, again, through journaling and whatever. Well, again, here we go, right? Here's this synchronicity of life playing. Here was a person that became a friend of mine. And if you remember an early post when I talked about intensive workshops and part of there, I talked about one of the workshops that I went through, the T group that I had attended earlier on. And there is where it was helping us all to sort of deal with some personal issues and to come out. There's one in Bethel, Maine. And this and there I had met a great friend, and he himself had really come out of the closet. His primary issue, gay, and the time when come out of gay was a very, very difficult task to do. But he called me up and he said, Mike, I got tickets. I got great tickets. I'm going to go and visit my brother. How would you like to go to Europe? I said, you're kidding me. I said, I've just been thinking about this. When? What are you thinking about? And so I did. I did. And so the courage, remember all those other steps, all the earlier steps of personal growth. You probably remember some of the earlier podcasts where I showed the image of the leap of faith, right? And I was been making those changes. So I was developing my own courage, just like the lion in the Wizard of Oz, to be able to start being more courageous. And it was scary. Believe me, they are. But these are the choices that you get in life. Do I pursue the call or not? And for me, I just knew it. It's something I had to do. And so what did I do? I said, yes, let's go. And so it was the better part of about 3 weeks. I had the vacation time, things settled up to do. And and I went through Europe. And along the way there, I would see all of these different things. I would watch these bunch of kids, connected, and they were at a place. And that's where I discovered youth hostels. And I realized how inexpensive it was to travel that way and how they would just go and travel from one place to another on a whim very often. Some had structured, some would go with the wind. Uh, and all of these pieces started to merge and they would come back. And I bought books. I remember one of them was The Lonely Planet at that time, which really talked about traveling. Was Europe and the Back Door, and things that really I started to immerse myself in and say, oh, now I'm getting it, right? There's a structure that I can use to sort of help me offset this fear of sort of jumping out there again, giving me some structure. And it's all now going to lead up to this amazing juncture, right? Is now ultimately the decision. And you saw this image earlier on when I talked about the nature of my modern day vision quest. I didn't know it at that time. I didn't even know to label it. I just knew that the pieces had all fallen in place, that it allowed me and be at a time when I could go. And here is my mentor, Al Pierce, who's now confronting his own mortality, right? At that point, he was going to die in 6 months. And so it started to really resonate with this three boxes of life and say, why am I going to put off tomorrow when I may not even make it? So again, all of this emphasis on really enjoying life and living it to the best of your ability now, today, while you can, and then tomorrow, if it shows up, and then the next day, getting the most out of life because you never know when things can change your direction, change your health, change your abilities, change your financial situation, etc. And so I did. And so It was a decision that I was just going to go and travel. Now, again, there was no indication at this point of it being a 3-year journey. All it was a decision that, oh, I like this. I'm going to go back and I'm going to start thinking about the next place I'm going to go. And that's what really will begin to start expanding on is this incredible journey. And along the way, it started a little bit more superficial, more like friendly traveling, allowing me to sort of just experience and see the world. And slowly but surely, over time, it would get deeper and deeper and deeper into the places I went. And then what I did is that coined this phrase called volun traveling, which is volunteer, no, yeah, volun traveling. And it was the fact that along the way, I'd always want to give something back. I'd want to connect with the community and get something back. And I had my skills. Remember, all of the volunteer activities I had done, particularly the ones on ambulance. So I had these skills of which I could go and volunteer places. And then what I found is that with an open mind, I went places and asked a few people, who could I talk to about maybe helping volunteering here while I'm here. It was never long before opportunities surfaced. And again, this whole new thing started to really to open up. Well, this was the opening. This is now what's leading now to this phase of self-discovery. And as I was journaling, there was really two key things that were paramount for, at that point, the focus of my travels. And I started to learn about having intentions. These were new things and new vocabulary that I was learning. And one thing is, well, what's your intention? And there were really two variables here, two questions that I wanted to be able to answer. Why is it I experience so much pain and suffering? Right? An extreme level of trauma in my background, in my past. Why me? And so that was one of the key questions that I had. Why me, and why did I have so much pain and suffering? And the second part of this was this question, and this is exactly how I phrased it, because this is exactly what I said to my boss when I said I'm leaving. She said, well, why? What are you doing? And I said, is that I've got to go out and figure out the meaning of life. And I remember she laughed at me. She thought I was joking. No, no, I know. I know that's good. That's how, come on. I said, no, I'm serious. And her face was like questioning me like, and looking at me puzzled. And I said, no, I really do. I said, she goes, well, what do you mean by that? And I said, I don't know, but I'll tell you when I get there. And there was that open mind, that leap of faith. So I started to give this whole time frame a new purpose, right? I put some definition to it. And I was now getting the tools along the way to ready myself now for my modern day vision quest. And that's the essence of getting to this point. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. It's amazing. And again, you don't have to do what I did. You don't have to follow those steps. There's things that you could do in your own backyard. I just recently went up to Yosemite recently in the last year. I'm going to go back again because it's profoundly nature. And in nature is this great tool to really be able to take some time to sort of look within. It could be going to a park. It could be a number of different things. There's a lot of workshops and things that you can do these days. But the purpose, the focus of self-discovery is that you're ready to go to that next level and jump in. And you're going to have to utilize all the things you developed yourself, the self-esteem, the resilience, the courage, because it's going to get tough. And this is not a trip for the faint-hearted, but it's the most awesome trip you'll ever make in your life. Everybody, thanks for your time. Until next week, have a great one. And here's to you in divining your own modern day vision quest. Love y'all. I'm Michael McGinnis, and you've been listening to You Can Do It, Inspiring Growth, Igniting Potential. Tune in every second and fourth Friday at 9:30 a.m. Pacific Time on Transformation Talk Radio. As a recognized educator, author, and speaker on human potential, let's learn together how to make the most out of this life and to put a ding in your universe. This is the incredible journey of personal and spiritual growth, self-discovery, and enlightenment. For more information, visit growhumanpotential.com.